that looked awful.
Well, I know that. Det vägen kom.
It's about I gotta say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
Being able to run as he shoots the moon to the fans here in Green Bay.
That is a disgusting act by Randy Moss.
This is not Detroit, man. This is the Super Bowl.
Wow.
Here we go. Goff from the gun to the end zone. And it's caught. Touchdown.
This is BS Sports.
And welcome in on a beautiful Tuesday evening where it has been raining all day here in Michigan. We are so back. The Lions with an amazing miracle comeback. We have Michigan State figuring out a way to win a football game. I didn't think they could do that. And on the road too. It was like a miracle. The miracle upon miracles. It was nothing but miraculous things for me this weekend. We have the Pistons. I don't know if they're ever going to win a game. I don't know if they're familiar that the season has started. It's not preseason. Like, it's not summer league. You know, you got to compete, but it's news to them. So maybe they'll figure it out at some point. Plus, we got a bunch of stuff to talk about with the Michigan Harbaugh cheating nonsense thing. Things are happening in the sports world, but we got to start with the headliner. All right. We got to start with the Lions. Okay. When I say that I might have lost some years potentially on my life watching this game, you can watch the broadcast on Sunday. Like, I'm pretty sure I had to lose at least a year. Like, I've always wondered this because obviously there is some, maybe I'm just making this up. There is some science to, high levels of stress leading to, other conditions and health that, inevitably lead to, lower lifespan. But I gotta imagine, how many years does like watching a bad sports team, like for older Lions fans that have since passed, can we find a way to determine how many years they would have lived if they were like Patriots fans or I don't even know. Like, I'm trying to think of other comparable, like, I guess with Patriots fans, they were also pretty bad for a long time. I don't know. We need to think of something. Maybe like a Lakers fan or something. A Lakers fan compared to a Grizzly fan. All 13 of them. But anyway, I'm going on different tangents here. The Lions pulled off, in my opinion, one of the most impressive comebacks I've ever seen. So I know that it's the Bears. I know that they turned the ball over like a million times. I know. But the fact that they won that game, because that is a game to me that the same old Lions do not win. That is a game where I've seen it time and time again. Lions at home, a team that they're supposed to be way better than, no chance. Nobody's betting on them. Everybody, you look at the picks across all the broadcasts. Nobody's picking the Bears. And then, of course, that is the kind of game that the Lions would lose. But it seemed that way for the first 58 minutes of the game. And then the final 2 minutes, it was just like Jared Goff was like, you know what? okay, guys, I was just messing around. I'm actually good at football. And he, despite having a bad game, look, his bad game is like a Justin Fields' good game, as far as I'm concerned. So Justin Fields, he accounted for like nearly 200 yards or over 200 yards of the Bears offense, but I still think he stinks. Okay. I know there were some people, he had a good game. Okay. Passing, he threw for 169 yards and 1 touchdown. I mean, yeah, I suppose you're going to say, well, he ran for 104 yards. Well, he's running for his life. I mean, like nobody is open and he's got a noodle arm. Like he can't. And he did have that one deep shot to DJ Moore, but whatever, broken clock and all that. Justin Fields, look, when the Bears needed him most, when they needed him most in those last 2 possessions, he was overthrowing guys. He was, to be fair, the play calling there was bad because they were just running the ball. And why any team attempts to run the ball on the Lions is baffling to me. You saw it last week with the Chargers. They really didn't run the ball that much against us. And they put up like 30 points. Like, I don't know why teams are trying to run the ball on us. You can't run the ball on this defense. But the other thing I wanted to point out about this game was it's one of those games where both teams were not playing well. Obviously, the Bears ended up blowing it. And obviously, the Lions put themselves in a situation where they had to climb back the whole game because they were behind. I want to say they were up at the half, but they were behind most of that game. And it was turnovers. It was bad penalties. It was just not great all around. It's just not good. I mean, they were booing Jared Goff. Like, the thing is, though, some people are getting like upset. They're like, no, we shouldn't boo him. It's like, I don't know. I kind of wanted to boo him. He threw like 4 interceptions. It was like his 3rd interception or something, and it was bad. Like, but the thing about it is, I don't know if something is like brewing in Jared Goff. Like, he's all of a sudden like Tom Brady when it comes to game-winning drives. It's like he can play the worst game ever, and it can be just so ugly, and you're just like, geez, he's missing guys, like he's overthrowing guys, he's turning the ball over, oh my gosh, and then it's like final 5 minutes, and he's like prime Brady. He just drives down the field. It was one of those things, when I was watching the game, there was a part of me that was like, it was like the 2 wolves, right? The one wolf inside of me was, okay, it's a fake comeback. I'm going to have to do an angry show on Tuesday because the Lions got themselves in a hole and then they did this phony comeback, this comeback, quote unquote. And it's going to keep some of the fans pleased that they seem like they had the game in some way they had a chance to come back. But no, it's like they just did. And the other point that I wanted to make about this is Jameson Williams. Way to show up, son. Way to show up, kid. I mean, look, I'm pleased by what Jameson Williams has shown me the last couple of games. He hasn't dropped the ball in the past 2 games, which is good. And I know that's a low bar, but you know what? He was dropping nearly a pass a game whenever he was getting targeted. And now, I don't know if maybe he's been working at the jugs machine or if Goff is just hitting him with better passes or what it is. He's catching the football. And he only had... he technically had 3 targets. Yeah, he did have 3 targets. It was a deep shot. I don't think he really had much of a chance with that ball. It was good defense. It was good coverage. But 2 for 3, and you got 44 yards and a touchdown. And you got your touchdown in the clutchest moment because that is where Jameson Williams is most deadly. It's not about – he's not going to be St. Brown. He's not going to be targeted 11 times. It's just not going to happen. But he will be targeted 3, 4, maybe 5 times a game. And if he makes – 3 of those catches. If he's targeted 5 times and he makes three catches, those are going to be big impact catches. Because you see, 2 catches for 44 yards. That means on average, his catches were netting 22 yards. So that, he was an impact player. He made an impact in a positive way, and I think it's a matter of he's getting more acclimated. And I saw some articles today. I didn't get a chance to read them. That he's getting more comfortable. They're figuring out the role that he can play on this offense. And it is just a take the top off the defense. It's not about necessarily, throwing at him in the middle of the field or, on these out. It's about him beating the safety and taking a deep shot for a touchdown. And if that's his role, fine by me. And if he enjoys it, if he can go out there and he can block, and he's had some pretty nice blocks this season. If he can go out there, he can block, he can be a decoy, he can open up the middle of the field for guys like Sam Laporta, guys like Josh Reynolds, guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs. Then you know what? He's having an impact, not even touching the football at that point. And that to me is like, it has been just since, I'd say at least since that Ravens game, it's basically been positive stuff from Jameson Williams. And he probably could have had an extra touchdown in the season if not for the penalty against the Chargers. He's played, he has slowly gotten better. And I know the drops early on were tough, and maybe it was just a matter of getting used to it and maybe fixing your catch form or whatever it is. Because the thing to me is like, I looked at his catch on the touchdown, and he's kind of like underhanding it. He's kind of doing a body catch with it. And you know what? I know some people don't really like it. To me, I don't care how you do it. Catch the ball. I don't care if you catch it with your fingertips. I don't care if you catch it with your body. I don't care how you catch the ball. Just catch the ball. If you can catch the ball consistently and if you can make an impact, I don't care how you catch it. I really don't. It doesn't matter to me. On top of that, I wanted to point out this is a thing that I realized, and I talked to my dad after the game, and the way the Bears lost this game was the way the Lions used to lose games. I mean, let me just pull up the team stats, right? Like, the Bears ran more total plays, 71-59. They had almost as many total yards. They had a little bit less. They had, let's see, I want to see the time of possession. They had the ball for 40 minutes and 24 seconds. 40 minutes. That is, almost the entire game you have the ball. That's 20 minutes roughly that we had the ball. They ran for more yards. Obviously, you have the lead. You're going to run for a bunch of yards. They ran for 183 yards. They didn't really get sacked all that much. They won the turnover battle. Lions had 4 turnovers to their 1. They had more first downs, 25-23. I mean, it's just like the fact that they lost that game is the way that the Lions would lose games. Like, I don't know. I don't know if people who are not Lions fans will understand that. Like, go back and look at some of the games the Lions have lost, and or just like bigger games. You think of the 2014 wild card, or any game, most games in the 2011 season where they play incredible. Or there was, I believe it was 2011 or maybe 2012, they played the Tennessee Titans, and the game was like a total shootout. Essentially, there's no defense played, and they found a way to lose. Like, they had like a crazy late game comeback, and this was that kind of game where the Bears, they scored 10 unanswered points in the third quarter. 10 unanswered points. They scored no touchdowns in the fourth quarter. The Lions scored 2, including a 2-point conversion. It's just one of those things where it's almost kind of euphoric, but you sort of feel bad because, you think about it, and let's assume the Lions win a Super Bowl relatively soon, at least as soon as this year, which I certainly think they could win the Super Bowl this year. What really is all that different between the Lions and the Bears? I mean, the Bears made a Super Bowl relatively recently, in my lifetime, they made a Super Bowl, but they didn't win. Outside of their championship in 85, I mean, they're largely bad. They're a team that has never had a quarterback. They're a team that has had great Hall of Fame players. They've had, a caliber of talent where you're like, man, how are they going to fail? And it's bad ownership. It's bad coaches. It's bad players. It's bad drafting. It's something. And that sort of describes the Lions to me. Like, and I get it too. I think you could do this sort of analogy. I think the Lions ultimately have been the worst team historically, obviously, given the lack of Super Bowl appearance, let alone multiple Super Bowl appearances for the Bears, including a win. But at the same time, it's one of those things where the more you think about it, and the more things start to turn, the more the Lions look really good. Like, as in best starting record in 60 years. The more these other teams who have had the time, who know what it's like to get up, right? It's one of the reasons, this is going to be a slight tangent, but it's one of the reasons I would get on teams like the Pistons or the Tigers, because it's not like they've never figured it out, right? Historically, both those teams have figured out how to win. And the Bears have won a championship, at least one, right? So it's not like this team has no history, and it's just like, it's like trying to, win as an expansion team. It's like but the more you think about it, it's like, hey, it's expansion teams have had more recent success than the Bears. The Panthers made the Super Bowl more recently than the Bears. Panthers, I think, have made at least as many Super Bowls as the Bears. Like, it's one of those things where I don't want to say, I don't particularly believe in any sort of sports curses or anything like that. I think they're kind of fun, but ultimately I think they're just things that fans talk about as a way to rationalize why a team is so bad, when usually it's bad ownership, bad GM, bad coaching, bad players, some combination of those. I didn't mean to just burst everybody's bubble about that, but it's like the other thing that it's like former player having the game-winning touchdown against you. A player you let walk in free agency just lost you the game, essentially, and dropped interceptions that could have changed the game. And, your quarterback coming back fresh and healthy. You finally have your starting quarterback. And the other thing that boggles my mind was at the end of that game, when Jahmyr Gibbs ran and got the ball to the 1, and the Lions didn't have any timeouts. So they were either going to run another play really quick or they were going to spike the ball. And Matt Eberflus calls a timeout. And I'm like, thanks, Matt. Like, but what is the – I have no – I was thinking about this on Monday. I was like, okay, what was he – like, maybe he was thinking – obviously, he was thinking he was going to get the ball back. But at the same time, if that was your thought, and if you thought you were going to get the ball back, then why weren't you using the timeouts before? Why weren't you stopping the clock so that you might have had, a minute 30 left to go by the time we would score, as opposed to 40 seconds? Look, it's I know Bears fans are not big fans of Mr. Eberflus's job, but unfortunately, the way it usually works in the NFL is you're going to get at least 3 years. So he's probably sticking around, but he'll have that'll be his final year if he doesn't figure it out. And man, that was, to me, I when that happened, I was like, oh, well, thanks. Like, you allowed us essentially a free timeout, and it gave us the chance to just be like, okay, well, we can just run the ball now because we don't have to worry about, the clock, because you just stopped it. And now that we're at the 1, we know it's David Montgomery is basically automatic from the 1 with our O-line. So shout out Matt Eberflus for being the MVP. I couldn't believe it. I thought it was Lion-esque, I guess. But yeah. So obviously this Thursday, though, at this point, it's like we have one more day. I don't want to see any injuries. You know what? Tomorrow's practice, don't even do contact. I don't know. No pad practice. I don't know what you got to do. I feel like your body is probably still, sore from this game. So I don't know what you need to do. But whatever it takes, I don't want to see anybody on the injury report. I hope Jonah Jackson is ready for Thursday. That would be a huge addition. Obviously, our O-line is still good without him, but it is so good with him. I mean, you look at the Chargers game. I mean, we were running all over them, and they were making no impact as far as sacks were going. But just that's the only thing. I just need Jonah Jackson, please, Jonah. Just I don't know, give him a peg leg or I don't even know what his injury is. Just give him something. It's just, oh man, the rare times that we get to see our O-line healthy, it's like there's going to be an offensive masterclass. That's all I'll say about that. But we do have other things to talk about in the NFL because it was a crazy week of primetime games and things and craziness. I'm basically only going to talk about the primetime games because I'm going to be honest with you guys. The rest of the week was kind of lackluster. I mean, the Texans had a good game against Cardinals. The the Browns and the Steelers, they played a game technically, like as far as like they were there were people on the field and they were following the rules. The Tennessee Titans stink. The Raiders almost beat the Dolphins. Look, man, there wasn't a whole lot. The Packers unfortunately beat the Chargers because Justin Herbert cannot lead a game-winning drive. I don't know what's in him. I love Justin Herbert, but it's like as soon as you need him most, he's like Justin Fields, except way better, way better. But first game I want to talk about is the Bengals and the Ravens. Before I talk about that, I gotta take a swig because my voice is dying here. All right. I got to slow down, man. I feel like I'm just like, my voice just firing on all cylinders all the time. But we got to talk about this Ravens-Bengals game because I think I said this, that this game, I was like, oh, finally, a good Thursday night game. And you know what? I was right. It was a good Thursday night game. But not for the reasons that, like, the game itself was good, but more that it was good in that, it impacted the season, right? Like, it was like a story-driven game. So, Joe Burrow, I'm not blaming it on him. I don't think this is his fault at all. But what is the mindset? If I'm Joe Burrow, and obviously he just got that big extension this year, if I'm Joe Burrow and I know my hand is broken, my wrist is destroyed, and your coaches are like, "Hey, Joe, are you good to go? Do you think you're good to start?" And he's like he had to at least be like, "Yeah, I think I'm okay." Like, Joe, buddy, I get it. You're a dog. You want to work through it. You can't play quarterback when your hand is, graham crackers. Like, it can't be done. And it sucks because the Bengals were just starting to turn it on. You thought, oh, here we go. They get in this little rut. They're going to figure it out. Joe Burrow is going to lead them to the promised land. He's going to do it, and he just dies, which is amazing because, despite losing his hand, he still threw for a touchdown. He still threw for over 100 yards, and he had a touchdown. It's like this guy with one hand, with his hand just destroyed, he still managed to throw to Joe Mixon for a touchdown. God bless him. God bless. But the other thing was Mark Andrews for the Ravens also died. So it's like, I don't know if maybe the Ravens were like, oh, okay, whatever we do, whatever you do, Bengals, just don't let Joe Burrow have an impact on this game. And it's like monkey's paw, right? So they lose Joe Burrow, but at what cost? They lose Mark Andrews. Obviously, one of the better tight ends, one of the elite weapons on that Ravens team. And, despite that, I don't feel like they're going to just fall apart at this point because they also lost their starting running back to start the season. This Ravens team, it's weird because the AFC usually is I would say it is probably the better conference. But we'll get into the Chiefs-Eagles game. I don't know about I think this might be a year where the NFC has at least the best team, at least as of right now. But the Ravens right now, Lamar Jackson, he played a pretty good game. It wasn't won 300 yards, it was 264 yards, and then 50 on his feet and a couple of touchdowns, no interceptions. Lamar Jackson, I wouldn't say he's playing MVP level, but he's certainly playing at the level that I think people sort of expected him to be playing most of the time since his MVP. And look, Odell Beckham Jr., he came alive this game, which is surprising because he was really not making much of an impact as far as I was aware with the Ravens starting this year. But right now the Ravens are sitting at 8-3. And I don't see the Bengals coming back to win this division, not with Jake Browning as their quarterback for the rest of the season. The Browns are technically in that hunt. The Steelers just fired Matt Canada, so I don't know that they're really going to do much. But it seems like this is the Ravens' division to lose, which means they're going to at least host one playoff game. I don't know what the seedings are. I want to say the Chiefs are still the 1 seed. I want to say that's the case. I'm not sure if because they would be ahead of the Dolphins because of the head-to-head. But, I mean, I think by the end of this, I think the Ravens very well could be the 1 seed. And I think right now, as far as Super Bowl contender in the AFC, it's hard for me not to put the Ravens. It's not. It seems to me that they're figuring it out. And, they're 4-2 at home. Who do they play the rest of the season? Let me take a look. They got the Chargers this week on the road. That's Sunday Night Football. They got the Rams at home. They got the Jags on the road. That's kind of a tough game, but I don't know. This Jags team, we don't really know what's going on. They got the 49ers on the road. That's going to be a tough game. They got the Dolphins at home. They got the Steelers at home. And that's the end of their season. I mean, to me, it's a tough stretch. I will admit, it's a tough stretch. But I definitely see them beating the Chargers and the Rams. Jaguars, I think they could definitely beat. 49ers, that might be a loss. Dolphins, I think that's a win. I mean, I could see them losing just one more game the rest of the season. And we'll see, because I've been fooled before by the Ravens. But I don't know. There's just, this team they're figuring it out. And they're playing really good. And the way their division is set up, they're definitely going to at least host a playoff game, I would say. But the other game I wanted to just briefly mention is the Giants-Commanders, because the Giants managed to win a football game, which is in its own way a miracle. But how about Tommy DeVito, man? Thomas DeVito, 246 yards and 3 touchdowns. I don't know. I just thought it was funny. I have no further comment about this game because I have self-respect and I did not follow this. This was one of those games that I was like, oh yeah, that is one of the games that happened today. But yeah, I mean, I got nothing else to say. There's just that. Sam Howell is actually a pretty good quarterback. He could be the future there for the Commanders. The only thing about Sam Howell to me is he reminds me a little bit of Stafford, where he just throws the ball a lot. He picks up a lot of yards, like a lot of total yards. But as far as like clutchness and accuracy, yeah, it's a little hit or miss sometimes. I mean, he had 3 picks, so it's not great, Bob. Not great, Bob. And then finally, or no, actually not finally. We got 2 more. Broncos country. How are we feeling right now? I gotta admit, all right. I was very upset with Sean Payton earlier in the season. You can go back and watch the clips, and you could probably point and laugh at me for saying that I thought Sean Payton ought to be fired after giving up 70 points to the Dolphins. Since that game, I mean, I think they won a few, or I think they lost a few games after that. But let me actually look. When did they? I don't even remember. When did they lose? That was so long ago. I mean, since that game, they have not given up 30 points in a game at all. The most points they've given up since that game was against the Bears, which was on the road, and it was when Justin Fields was still alive. I guess he's back alive now, but still. So I don't know if Sean Payton and that defense, they just said, you know what? Whatever we were doing that game, we're going to do the opposite. And it seems to be working, because the Vikings were red hot. I believe they had the largest win streak at that point in the league. And the Broncos now, I think they hold on to the longest win streak in the league. And it's like, this Broncos team, like, I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender. I don't even think they're going to win the division. I don't even know if they're going to make the playoffs. But, I'll give credit where credit is due. Sean Payton has started to figure it out. And Russell Wilson has started to figure it out as well. I mean, he's not playing, amazing. And he's not blowing you away. When I watched this game, the thing that stuck out to me was not that Russell Wilson was just making these amazing throws or just like running all over the field and just it was just that, like, he was not turning the ball over. But it wasn't just that he was being a game manager. It was this, I don't even know. It was like magical the way he would like just drop balls that were going at like, 0.0001 mph. It was just like slowly a ball would just drop into the hands of a receiver. And, I don't know if it means anything more than they're just kind of a scrappy team that'll maybe get to like 9-8 or, 7-10 or whatever. But I will say, I think at this point, assuming they don't just like lose out or something, I think that Russell Wilson and obviously Sean Payton, they've certainly earned at least another year to figure it out. The only question is if they actually can draft competently and pick up some good players in free agency. And I mean, it's difficult with the Broncos because I really don't trust them overall, but I don't know. They're feisty, and I'm a little frightened. I'll admit it. Would you sign Darius Leonard? Colts just released him. I would not. Darius Leonard, obviously that was another big news story, was released earlier today, I want to say. And since the injury, he just really hasn't been all that impactful. I can pull up his numbers really quick. Darius Leonard. Like, the thing is, if you're the Colts, right, and you're a bad team, and you want to, like, you cutting a guy, to me, tells me everything I need to know. Because if you're a bad team, you should be in no business of cutting a player if they're good, right? And the fact is that basically, since his rookie season, he has not been all that good. I mean, he hasn't had over 100 tackles in a season since his rookie season. And this season, he's had just 34 tackles. He's had, let's see, where's the TFLs? Are they not? Where's TFLs? He's had no sack. He hasn't had a sack in 4 seasons since 2020. 2020 was the last time he had a sack, and he only had 3 sacks in 2020. And he hasn't played a full season. I mean, he never played a full season, to be fair. But actually, in 2021, no, that was a 17-game season. So he's, I should say solo tackles, by the way, not total tackles. I think I misspoke there. But no, you might get him for a 1-year deal, but he just seems like, unfortunately, he's not getting any better. He's only getting worse. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but not going to work out, I don't think. But anyways, the final game I want to talk about was Chiefs and the Eagles Super Bowl rematch. I don't know were you guys aware that this was a Super Bowl rematch? I don't know if did you know these teams played in the Super Bowl last year? Did you know that? Did you guys know that? I don't know. They didn't point it out enough in the broadcast. My goodness. Look, this was one of those games where I think it showed me how different both of these teams were from last year. Because obviously, you look at the game last year, it was offense. There was obviously no defenses being played. 30-plus points scored by both teams. Just crazy plays all the time. Big plays. Hurts running all over the field. Mahomes chucking it deep, hitting guys. And this Chiefs team, I mean, to give them credit, their defense is really good. But they pointed out a stat in the broadcast that in the last 3 games, the Chiefs have not scored in the second half. That is concerning. That is extremely concerning. You are not going to win a whole lot of games not scoring in the second half. It's just not going to happen. Even if you're up like 20 and you don't score in the second half, that game is going to be close by the end, assuming that the other team is scoring at least a little bit. Like, Mahomes, I get it. He didn't play his greatest game. Threw for 177 yards, a couple of touchdowns, and an interception. But Mahomes is not getting a whole lot of help. When your leading receiver has 11 targets and catches the ball just 5 times for 53 total yards, you're in a bad spot. Like, when you have not a single player who does not have, or excuse me, Kadarius Toney, actually, he did not have a drop. And McCole Hardman, he also didn't have a drop. But those guys only got 2 targets. I mean, they basically didn't play. Just like there's a dropping problem in Kansas City. I think that they also showed us down in the broadcast. They lead the league in drops. Like, I don't know how you can. Your defense can be really good, but if you're dropping balls every single day, every single game, and at a rate that they're doing it, you're just not going to win. You're just not going to win a whole lot of games. Further, talk about the Eagles for a little bit. So they have a 9-1 record, but they still, for that 9-1 record, they're not as dominant as they once were. So Hurts really didn't play a great game. 150 yards and no touchdowns and a pick. Not a great game. DeAndre Swift, credit to him, former Lion, played a pretty good game. 12 carries for 76 yards and a touchdown. And Hurts had a couple of rushing touchdowns. I believe they were both on the tush push, though. Like, to me, that's a little bit of stat padding. I usually look for passing touchdowns when I'm looking at quarterbacks. Very rarely do I account for the rushing touchdowns unless they rush for like 70 yards or something like that. But this was kind of a rough game. And I got a question about the Eagles. Do they like have something where A.J. Brown is like, he's top target, like, 3 games in a row, and then the 4th game, he's just, I don't know. We don't want to throw to him. It's like, I get it, throw the ball to the hot hand, and Devontae Smith was playing a great game. But I'm sorry, the world where, DeAndre Swift has more receiving yards than A.J. Brown is not a world I want to live in. That's just ridiculous. And to be fair, they were not passing the ball well. And they didn't score more than 1 touchdown in any quarter, including second quarter where they didn't score at all. But it's just, and there was turnover. It was a sloppy game. Like, for this being a Super Bowl rematch, you really wouldn't think it, because these teams played sloppily. But the Eagles, they're still 9-1, and you can't discount that. As far as whether or not I think they're gonna win the Super Bowl, I think they could, just because they seem to always find a way to win. But at the same time, I also think they could be a surprise exit in the playoffs. Like, it's if they get the 1 seed, I think it's a good shot that they make the Super Bowl, because having home field advantage in Philly, of all places, in the winter, that's obviously a huge advantage. At the same time, they haven't looked good in bad weather games, and they've played weird games. Like, I will never get over that Jets loss, where I'm baffled by it. Like, how do you lose to the Jets? I don't know. I don't understand it. And we'll see in the playoffs, because obviously they're going to win that division, I think. Some people might say the Cowboys, but no, they're not going to win. The Cowboys are not going to win that division. I can't. I'm not going to do it. I'm not even going to talk about the Cowboys, because they're not worth it. But that's pretty much all for the NFL stuff. So I will quickly transition over to college football. But first, before we talk about the games, I have to talk about this Michigan cheating scandal thing, because more news has emerged, and I gotta say, I hate to be the guy who says I told you so. I really do. I can't stand to be that guy. But I told you so. I really did. I don't know what Michigan fans, I don't know what planet you guys are living on, where apparently, everybody is doing this. This is like, hold on. I don't know. You know what? No, I won't do that. I was thinking about reading the comments of the last clip, which was very popular, because apparently I learned the best way to get a lot of views is to just have me tell Michigan fans the truth. So that seems to work really well. But it was sort of a snowball effect last week. First, Michigan fires Chris Partridge, their linebackers coach, who apparently tried to cover up the sign-stealing evidence. So let me see here if I can find the actual point here. Dellinger and Wetzel, two reporters who reported this, part of the NCAA evidence presented to Michigan points to a university booster named Uncle T as having partially funded the scouting scheme by Connor Stallions, thousands of dollars for expenses, and Partridge allegedly attempted to destroy evidence on a computer after the news of the scandal became public. So I got a couple of things to break out here. All right. We can now just throw out the lone wolf. Okay. This is not just one guy on Michigan staff who happened to be breaking the rules and nobody knew what was going on. Okay. That's not the case. Obviously, it's not the case. He's working with this guy. He's working with their linebackers coach. We can also throw out the idea that he was paying for the games himself with his own personal money. He wasn't. Apparently, Uncle T, no relation to Mr. T, was paying for the expenses for these games, which, of course, anyone with common sense could realize that I don't think an assistant on a college coaching staff is going to be able to afford to go to 30 college football games, sending a bunch of people to these different games. Presumably they're staying the night, so they got to get hotels. Like, the idea that he was just doing this on his own buck is ridiculous. But anyway, we can get rid of that. And we can also get rid of everybody is doing it. Because no, not everybody has a booster that is funding their cheating scam, that is funding their cheating operation. Not everybody has a linebackers coach who will destroy evidence as soon as the scandal breaks. Not everybody has, a cover up and a level of indignant, just a sense that you did nothing wrong, like Michigan, like having your president tweet out bet because they thought that they would be able to win this case. Like, Michigan looks like a bunch of dummies, which I love. I think it's great. As far as I was concerned, I wanted them to keep fighting because the more they fought, the stupider they looked. And now you have this report that Michigan's coach, that Jim Harbaugh, could be suspended for the bulk of the 2024 season. Like, here's the thing. This is from Bruce Feldman of Fox Sports. So not exactly, this isn't, ESPN. This isn't, Paul Feinbaum. This isn't, Pete Thamel. This isn't people who are just out to get you. This is Fox. This is your propaganda wing on Channel 4 or Channel 2 or whatever it is for local games. This is a big thing. Like, this idea, and I just don't get it. To say, like, there's so many levels of logical inconsistency. It's like, you can't say, for one, that it has no competitive advantage. Obviously, it does. You wouldn't be doing it if it didn't. And then you can't say that everybody's doing it. Obviously not. We don't have guys running around to 30 different games, and we certainly don't have coaches destroying evidence, and we certainly are doing it on the dime of a booster named Uncle T. The more stuff comes out about this, the more Michigan looks completely guilty. And, God bless you if you don't win on Saturday against Ohio State. And further, God bless you if Ohio State comes into your house and destroys you. Because if they do that, I don't want to hear about Jim Harbaugh not being on the sideline. You cheated. And you have to put up or shut up. Okay? I've said Michigan did not need to cheat to be good. They were already good. They were incredibly talented. And Jim Harbaugh was leading the pack. The fact that they cheated brings that into question. But, it's a little too complicated for Michigan fans. I understand many of you did not go to U of M, so you're a little slow, you're a little behind the curve as far as intellect and logic and thinking things thoroughly through. But unfortunately, it is a bit more complicated than Harbaugh didn't know. Which, again, newsflash, he doesn't have to know. I mean, hold on, let me look up. Let me look up Bo Schembechler. Let's go ahead and take a look at old Bo's quote on let's see. Let's see. Don't know. Didn't. Here we go. Here it is. Let's go for all the people who want to say, oh, Jim didn't know, so he shouldn't be punished. Well, let's listen to what former head coach Bo Schembechler from his book Bo's Lasting Lessons. The legendary coach teaches the timeless fundamentals of leadership. And I quote, "Every coach, every executive, every leader, they all know right from wrong, even those Enron guys. When someone uncovers a scandal in their company, I don't think they can say, I didn't know what was going on. They're just saying they're too dumb to do their job. And if they really are too dumb, then why are they getting paid millions of dollars to do it? They know what's going on." I couldn't agree more, Bo. I couldn't agree more. So Jim Harbaugh deserves to be punished for this because he should have known. If he didn't know, it is as much an indictment on him as a coach than if he did know. And I don't even know if he did know. It's possible he didn't know, but it doesn't matter. It does not matter. I don't know. Maybe it's a little too complicated again. I need to speak a little slowly when I talk to Michigan fans. But moving on to actual football stuff. On to actual football stuff. First of all, Michigan State, they beat Indiana in a nail-biter. Was it beautiful? No. Was it fun to watch? Largely no. But you still won the game. You still won the game, and I'm not going to be upset with a win. I'm never going to be upset with a win. And the way I see this game is, look, is Caden Hauser the most amazing quarterback ever? No, he's not. I mean, not terrible, okay? He threw for 3 touchdowns and 279 yards. He had 2 picks, but not terrible. Not, like, awful, okay? And Malik Carr had a coming-out party, man. Malik Carr, the tight end, all of a sudden realized he was actually pretty good, and he had 119 yards. He played fantastic. And credit to the Spartan defense. They never really let Indiana, first of all, they shut them out in the first quarter, which is impressive in and of itself. And then they only let them score 1 touchdown a quarter, which, again, is not ideal. I'm not saying it's like super great. But, they allowed us to win the game. And, again, further credit to the offense as well. I mean, you got to a point where you were tied in the third quarter, but you scored 10 points in the fourth quarter. You managed to complete the comeback in that final drive, and it comes down to a final field goal that they miss, and you stay alive. And, I mean, look, obviously your season is over. You're not bowl eligible. And at this point, you're just playing spoiler. You're just trying to ruin somebody else's weekend, and I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. And the way that I see this is, okay, we've been playing not great all year, obviously. But to me, is it possible that we beat Penn State? I mean, it's not. But I wonder what the actual probability is according to ESPN. Hold on. What do they got us at? Okay. So they have Penn State at a 95.1% win probability. I don't like those odds. But here's my thing, okay? Neither of these teams, I think, have particularly good offenses. So I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. If anything, it's going to be a low-scoring game. That's my feeling. At the same time, our defense has showed up at least against bad offenses. As in to say, we managed to beat Nebraska and we managed to beat Indiana. It's sort of, I'm telling I think this is going to be a bad game. I don't think this is going to be a particularly exciting game one way or the other. Either Penn State's just going to blow us out, or it's going to be 3-6 in the third quarter or something like that. It's either going to be one of those two. And we've seen that Penn State, I was going to say Ohio State, we've seen that Penn State has been able to score a lot of points. they scored like 50 on Maryland. And surely Maryland has a better defense than us. Maybe they don't. I don't know. Speaking of Maryland, Michigan, they played Maryland this past week, and Maryland had a chance to make this game interesting. Maryland was down just 5 points, I believe. They were down 29-24 until little Talua, unfortunately, intentional grounding penalty in his own end zone, which is a safety, and the game was pretty much over at that point. But thing about this game to me that I took away is that Michigan looked very vulnerable. And since they've played real teams, so at least since the Penn State game, Michigan has looked vulnerable. And especially with the suspension to Jim Harbaugh and with all the news that has continued to break about this whole thing, like, obviously they didn't play bad games against Purdue or Michigan State, but that's because those two teams are terrible. And I would be shocked if they played badly against those two games. But Maryland, who is not great, but they're not like the worst team ever. And Penn State, who is also not great, but they're not like the worst team ever. Michigan has been in positions where the other team certainly has a chance to win. And to be fair to them, they have come up and they've pulled off the stop one way or the other. And I remember last year, I believe it was last year, they played Illinois, and Illinois nearly beat them. And just before the OSU game. And you thought, okay, that was a game where it looked like maybe Michigan might be exposed. Maybe something's going to happen against Ohio State, but obviously we know how that story ended. To flip that, Ohio State murdered Minnesota. To be fair, it was at home. So, I don't think there was really any question they were going to do that. But the more that I go into that game, the more I realize how I just don't feel all that confident either Ohio State or Michigan as far as national championship favors. I don't really think either of them are all that good on a national scale. Now, would I love it if Ohio State beat the ever-living stuff out of Michigan? Yes, absolutely. It would make next week's show like it would be a celebration. It would be glorious, especially if Michigan State can win on Friday and if the Lions win on Thanksgiving, it would be a glorious show. But so that is sort of the, going into it. Ohio State feels good about themselves. Michigan a little nervous, maybe. We'll see. Speaking of domination, Georgia dominated Tennessee. I gotta say, so this game. I need to look at the old win probability. Okay, so when we start, so Tennessee goes up 7-0, right? They had like it was like first play of the game or something, and they score a touchdown. And you're thinking, oh, maybe Georgia's gonna be no. Georgia goes on to score. Let's see if I could actually get the scoring. Yeah, here's the scoring summary. They score, let's see, 10, 14, 34 unanswered points. I mean, my gosh. Or not 34, 24 unanswered points. Like, goodness gracious. I mean, you didn't have to murder them like that. I like, Tennessee is not all that good, but they're still a top 25 team, and you just beat them like a drum. I mean, it's like one of those games where I was like, oh wow, maybe this Georgia Tennessee game might be good, and I was like, oh, it's not a good game, at least not for Tennessee. So look, to me right now, given the situation with the playoffs, Georgia needs to win the SEC for the playoff committee to have a good weekend. Like, for them to feel good, they need Georgia to win the SEC. Because say Georgia, obviously I think Georgia is going to make the SEC. Well, I think that's all but determined already. Georgia is going to make the SEC championship. Question is, if they lose in the SEC championship, do they get in? I would think so. I mean, like, it would be their only loss. Obviously, they're the the reigning champions, I feel it would be I feel like it would be kind of unfair, assuming, that the team is actually good, that you don't even include the reigning champion. But look, that's a scenario probably for next week, for us to just go off about, just crazy playoff scenarios. But I wanted to also talk about Washington remaining undefeated. So Washington, they played Oregon State in what I thought was going to be the game of the week. And to be fair, I think it was. If I can find the game. It's somewhere. There it is. It was a good game. It was sloppy. It was tough. But Washington was able to pull it off. It was bad weather, snow, sleet, rain, whatever you want to call it. Michael Penix did not play an amazing game. He threw for just 162 yards and a couple of touchdowns. But look, Washington has found different ways to win, and they remain undefeated, and they will, I would assume, more than likely be undefeated for the rest of the season. And that means, let's assume they win the Pac-12. I feel like you can't not include an undefeated Washington team that won their conference in the playoff. Again, we can get more into the playoff stuff in the coming weeks, but Washington right now, it's weird because they're not, I wouldn't say they're particularly great on defense, but their offense is just so potent. It's just so deadly that any game that they play is pretty entertaining. Like I would love to see them match up against Georgia. I really would. And if they get blown out and, Michael Penix throws like 3 interceptions, all right, you know what? Mistakes were made. But I don't know. I really like this Washington team. They're a lot of fun to watch. And Penix is a super great quarterback coming out of this class. And speaking of super great quarterbacks, we also got to talk about Oregon laying the smackdown on Arizona State. I mean, if Bo Nix is not your Heisman, I don't know who is. Bo Nix threw for 404 yards and 6 touchdowns. 6. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5. 6 touchdowns. I mean, when you have 3 receivers with all at least 80 yards, you know what? If you're Arizona State, I understand you're a terrible team this year, and you're a terrible team most years. But, I mean, did you even field the team? What the heck happened? They scored 42 points in the first half. I mean, I didn't even know that was possible. I was shocked by that. They pointed it. I got like an alert on my phone. It was like Oregon scores 42 in the first. I was like, is that a typo? They don't play defense in Arizona State. But my main takeaway from this is that Bo Nix, absolutely, positively, no doubt in my mind, he's the Heisman, and he might be the best quarterback in the class. I mean, we know that Oregon quarterbacks, at least in recent history, have turned out to be pretty good. We got Justin Herbert. That's all I can think of. What about Joey Harrington? He played really well against the Lions that one game. But no, either way, look, Oregon is another one of these teams. Oregon wins the Pac-12, which they will be playing in that championship game. If they manage to beat Washington, and that's Washington's only loss, I feel like you're going to put Oregon in the championship, or you're going to put Oregon in the playoff game, which is wild. I mean, talk about a heartbreaking season if you're Washington. If you lose in the Pac-12 championship and you don't even get to play for the national championship, man, that'd be rough. That would be unfortunate. And then finally, I want to talk about Florida State. So they put on a clinic against Northern Alabama. North Alabama. I don't even care about that. Unfortunately, it was not without casualty. Jordan Travis goes down, done for the season, injured. Probably bombs his draft status. I don't know. Let me actually see. Does he have another year where he can play? He's a senior. I don't think he has another year of eligibility. I could be wrong though. Maybe he does. And really sucks. It really, really sucks because, Florida State is still undefeated. They're still a good shot to win the Pac-12, the ACC, and they're going to be playing Louisville in the ACC championship game. And Louisville's a feisty team. I don't know if they're going to be able to overcome the loss of Jordan Travis. I mean, credit to Tate Rodmaker. I don't even know if he played a decent game, 217 yards, a couple of touchdowns. Obviously, it was against North Alabama, so I can't really take that much out of it. But still, I mean, look, it's a really good wide receiver room. You got Keon Coleman, got Johnny Wilson, you got guys. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. But then it becomes an issue, okay? If it comes down to, are you putting in undefeated Washington Pac-12 championship? Or are you putting in undefeated Florida State ACC champion? I feel like you got to put Washington ahead of them. But then there's also the question, are you going to have two teams from the SEC? Are you going to take whoever's like, if Alabama wins the SEC, if they win the SEC championship, how are you not going to put them in? Like, to me, it would be absurd. Like they win their conference with just one loss. But at the same time, you have to put Georgia in, right? I feel like you have to. Man, I don't know. I've been thinking of more and more. And I got to say, expanded playoffs couldn't come soon enough, honestly. Like, if they should have just done it this year, because the way that it's shaped out, man, there are like 8 teams. You can make a case for being in the playoff, honestly. That's what's so crazy. I'm serious. It's like, okay, Georgia, Florida State, Michigan, Texas, Washington, Ohio State, Oregon. Did I already say Florida State? There's probably another team that I'm forgetting here. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm sure there's an 8th team. Oregon State. I don't know. Not Oregon State. Michigan State. Why not? We'll put them in the playoffs. See what happens. But yeah, so it's unfortunate for Florida State. It sort of puts a damper, I think, on their playoff chances. Not because if they go undefeated, they're not going to get in. I think there's a shot if they go undefeated, they get in. It's not clear cut, but there is a shot. But it makes it more difficult to go undefeated. I mean, you got to play Florida next week. It's a big rivalry game. And then obviously you got the ACC championship game, which I think will be the toughest game yet to that point for Florida State. But I don't know. That injury to Jordan Travis, it's not ideal. It's not ideal. So, yeah. But speaking of college football, we will preview now. Hold on. I realize I've accidentally clicked on the wrong thing. Take a look at this weekend, I should say, because it is rivalry weekend. It is the best week in college football, in my honest opinion, in my humble opinion. It's rivalry weekend, okay? Michigan State's playing on Black Friday, but if you have some level of, self-respect, you also have Texas Tech and Texas playing on Friday night. You have Oregon State playing on Friday night. Of course, Saturday, the game, Michigan, Ohio State. I think that's going to be the game of the week to watch for obvious reasons. 2 top 3 ranked teams in the country duking it out in the big house. It should be a good game. On top of that, you do also have, let me find some of the other games here. Is that it? Is that really it? No. You got Washington State. I mean, that probably won't be that great of a game, but it's a rivalry game. Hey, you never know. Weird things happen. Georgia Tech. Where's Alabama? Where's Alabama and Auburn? Where's that game? I know it's here. Am I stupid? Am I dumb? It's not on Friday. It's not on Thursday. What? Where is it? Now I'm scanning here. There it is. Alabama, Auburn. So that actually is a game to watch because it's the Iron Bowl and crazy things happen. And Alabama cannot afford to lose that game, period. If they lose that game, they're out of the playoff. Then it doesn't matter if they win the SEC. which is amazing to me because like then Georgia could just, in theory, Georgia could rest their starters in the SEC. They won't do that, but in theory, I think they could, and they'd probably still get in, which is amazing. Again, just incredible. But anyway, that game's going to be at 3:30 on CBS. I think it's basically just going to be those two games are the games that I'll be focusing on: is Ohio State, Michigan, and Alabama, Auburn. The other games, icing on the cake. I mean, I think Oregon State could be a good game. That's another game. Oregon cannot afford to lose that game. And they know that Oregon State, Oregon is leaving for the Big Ten next year. So it's one of those things. I mean, we saw it with Oklahoma State beating Oklahoma this year. Just saying, that could be a game to watch. Friday night, Black Friday. Little Black Friday college football. How about that? But that is enough college football. Do have a few more things I want to cover, okay? Very briefly, because we're nearing the end of the show here. So the Oakland A's are officially moving to Las Vegas. The A's move to Vegas is approved by the MLB owners unanimously. And it is just unfortunate. Oakland A's, obviously a historic franchise, multiple-time World Series franchise, Moneyball, all that stuff. Oakland fans are, rabid for the A's. They love the A's. They've loved all their sports teams. And this was the last one. And now they're going to be in Las Vegas. And Jeff Passan tweeting out, A's owner John Fisher, quote, "Today is an incredibly difficult day for Oakland A's fans. It's a great day for Las Vegas." And to me, you could not be more tone deaf, John Fisher. You could not be more unaware of just how awful that sounds. Okay? For one, nobody in Las Vegas cares. Nobody. Like, there is no Vegas fan who, for one, even if you are a Vegas sports fan and you love baseball and you want a baseball team for your own city, you don't want this team. Okay? For one, John Fisher is a cheap loser. He's not going to do anything of good for you in Vegas. For two, you don't want to take a team that has such dedicated fans that they are willing to go to games to tell you to sell the team, John. But I was very disheartened by that news. It's unfortunate, and it's the side of sports that unfortunately seems to come to fruition a lot of times, where you have a team like the Oakland A's that, again, I mean, I just think of the Oakland Raiders and I think of the Golden State Warriors, who at least are still in state, but they don't play in Oakland anymore. I mean, I don't know what's in the water in Oakland, but they just can't keep sports teams. So rest in peace to the Oakland A's as they move on to Vegas. And speaking of moving on and sadness, the Red Wings dropped 2 games in Sweden. They managed to get just 1 point due to an overtime loss to the Senators, and then a loss to the Maple Leafs the next day. So my question about the Red Wings is, can they still make the playoffs? This has been a rough November. If I can pull up their standings here, if I can pull up their schedule, I should say. Let me pull up their official website. So in the month of November, they have won just 2 games. They have gone, let's see, 0-1, 1-1, 1-2, 1-2-1, 2-2-1, 2-2-2, 2-3-2. So 2-3-2 they have gone in the month of November so far. Now, they had a massive break, and they won't play again until tomorrow. They come back home. They play the Jersey Devils, who are a struggling team as well due to the injury to Hughes. But, man, you got to be able to string some wins together. I mean, right now in the standings, they're out of the playoffs. Like, they are – let me pull up the wild card. The Tampa Bay Lightning and the Carolina Hurricanes, both ahead of them. In the case of the Lightning, they're ahead of them by 3 points. The Hurricanes just won. So a win tomorrow, assuming, I don't know what the Hurricanes schedule is, but win tomorrow puts them over the Hurricanes and into that second wild card spot. Now, here's my thing. I'm of the opinion all you got to do is get in the playoffs. I mean, we saw it last year. The Florida Panthers went all the way from they were the low wild card team to the Stanley Cup. So all you got to do is make the playoffs. But meanwhile, hey, look at the Philadelphia Flyers, man. They're in second place. They're playing some good hockey in Philly. And the Capitals as well. They started slow. They started to figure it out. They're in third place in their division. The Florida Panthers, man, they've come alive. They're raring and ready. And I don't know how the Boston Bruins are still so good, but they just are. I don't know how it happens. I don't know how it works, but they are. So for the Red Wings, look, I look at the teams that are ahead of them. And I think, yes, I think that the Flyers, I think they're going to start to fall. I think, although in that case, they actually are not affected because the Flyers play in the Metropolitan Division. The Maple Leafs, yeah, I think those top three teams, the Panthers, the Leafs, and the Bruins, for the time being, assuming that they continue to play at the rate that they're playing, yeah, those are the teams that are going to be in the top three. So it really is just a matter of getting into one of those two wildcard spots. And are you going to remain better than the Tampa Bay Lightning or the Carolina Hurricanes or the Pittsburgh Penguins or the New Jersey Devils? I think they're capable of doing it. I think that we've seen that the team gets better and better every year under Yzerman. So, look, I do think they can still make the playoffs. They're 8-6-3. They've kind of been stumbling since that opening month of October. They've got to put together some wins. And, if I look at their schedule, again, for the rest of the month, you play Jersey, who is struggling right now. You play Boston, which is a tough game. On the road, that's not easy. No doubt about it. And then you play at home Minnesota Wild. It's another team I think that's winnable. And then you play on the road New York. That's a tough game. And then you play at home the Blackhawks. I mean, I think if you can come away, if you can get a 3-game win streak in these final 4 games, that would be superb. I feel like if you can win those 3 home games total, if you can win 3 out of the 5, that's that you'll take that. You'll take that anyway. That's what I'm looking for, I guess. I need to see a stretch of hockey like we saw in that opening month that I think they're capable of once they get hot. But right now they've just been ice cold, and I really hope that this rough November does not come back to bite them in the long term. So yeah, a little bit of concern for the Red Wings, but I do think that they will figure it out, and I do think they still make the playoffs. Speaking of figuring it out and things not going well, the Detroit Pistons might not win another game. I will say I was not high on the Detroit Pistons, but I thought, they could probably win, 30 games, right? I think that's reasonable. It has been nearly a month since the Pistons won a game. October the 28th, when they beat the Chicago Bulls at home, was the last time that the Pistons won a game. Ironically enough, they were above 500 at that point. I thought after they won 2 in a row, they beat the Hornets and they beat the Bulls, I thought, hey, maybe this will be an interesting year. Maybe this Pistons team will be kind of fun. And since then, they have dropped 12 straight losses. 12 straight losses is unacceptable. Unacceptable. I mean, I know they're not good. I know they're not a playoff team. I know. I had them winning 30 games. There is a way of going about business, okay? Friday, they got the Pacers on the road. That's not going to be an easy game. Then they got the Wizards on Monday. That is a winnable game. But you look at it and you think, oh, that's a winnable game. But I mean, are they? When you have the worst record in basketball, I don't know that any game is winnable. I mean, here's the rest of their schedule for the rest of the calendar year. Okay, you ready? Here we go. Pacers, Wizards, Lakers, Knicks, Cavs, Pacers, Sixers, Bucks, Hawks, Jazz, Nets, Celtics, Raptors. I mean, I see 1, maybe 2 wins in that. I think maybe we could beat the Wizards. Maybe we could beat the Pacers one time. Maybe. Maybe the Jazz. We could beat the Jazz, maybe. What's terrible, too, is next Wednesday is one of our few national games. We'll be on NBA TV. So if you have NBA TV, that game will be broadcasted nationally. So the entire nation, in theory, will have the ability to be able to watch that game, which is concerning. But, yeah, the Pistons are so bad. And at this point, you got to think it's time to move on from Troy Weaver. I mean, he's been here since 2020, and the team has not gotten better since he's gotten here. In fact, it's gotten worse. And it's his roster. It's his guys. I know there's injuries. I don't care. There's no excuse for losing 12 straight games. And certainly no excuse for losing 12 straight games the way you're losing them, where you're just terrible. And it's bad coaching. It's bad. It's bad everything. It's just bad. I don't know. I don't know. There's nothing more I can say about this team. They're just so awful. But that is everything, I believe. Yeah. Okay. So it is about that time. It is everybody's favorite part of the show. It is the part that gets rave reviews every single time. Everybody talks about it. It's constantly in the news. You know, they can't stop talking about it. I think that's what it is. And that is, of course, the picks. And I believe we are on music number 5. All right. Maybe turn it up. There, that should be good. All right. Here we go. So, obviously, Thanksgiving week, exciting. Lions playing that day, first game of the week. It's great. Love to set the tone. So let's start. Packers at the Lions. Seth is taking the Lions. Of course, I will agree. The Packers are not good. Jordan Love is not good. We saw what the Lions did to Jordan Love earlier this season on the road. I think this is going to be even worse. I think this has the potential to be just totally embarrassing for the Packers. However, what I will say is obviously the Lions defense has been playing a little sus. It has been a little bit rough. But I think this is the game where we start to see those TFLs. We start to see those sacks, potentially even some turnovers, some interceptions. Yeah, I think this is going to be a win for the Lions, which is great because they have not won on Thanksgiving in a very long time. So it'd be great to get a win here. Up next, other Thanksgiving game, we got the Commanders visiting the Cowboys. Seth is taking the Cowboys, and I will have to agree. As much as I hate it, I have to take the Cowboys here because the Commanders, they can put up a lot of yards. Sam Howell can, throw that ball 1 billion yards. But their defense is so bad, and I think Dak Prescott and the Cowboys are going to have a field day with them. It might be a shootout, depending on what defense the Cowboys show. But I don't know. I just don't really have a whole lot of hope in the Commanders at this point in the season. They obviously sold at the deadline, so yeah, give me the Cowboys. And finally, on the Thanksgiving evening game, we have the 49ers visiting Seattle, taking on the Seahawks. Seth's taking the Niners, and I will agree. Look, the Seahawks, I don't know if Kenneth Walker is going to be back. Geno was back, but obviously he's probably still decently banged up. But he's looked kind of rough. I mean, this is a divisional game, so anything can happen. And on the road in Seattle is not easy for the 49ers. But they've won tough games on the road. They've destroyed Jacksonville on the road, and I think that's a tough place to play for sure. Yeah, I give me the 49ers here. I think they're just overall the better team, and they're vying to try to get a higher seeding for sure. And I don't know, the Seahawks, it feels like the thread is starting to come loose with them. All right, but we finally have excuse me, we have the first ever NFL Black Friday game. Dolphins visiting the Jets. Seth is taking the Dolphins. And yeah, I'm going to agree solely based on the fact that the Jets are starting former Lions legend, former Lions starting quarterback, Tim Boyle. You're not going to win with Tim Boyle. He's never been good. Somebody pointed out in I believe it was r/NFL or one of the subreddits I'm in. Like, Tim Boyle, even when he played in college, was terrible. Like, he's never been a good quarterback. And the fact that they are putting him in front of Zach Wilson tells you just how bad Zach Wilson has been. Not only for the just overall, that you're like, all right, you know what? We'll put in the career backup. We'll put him in. Yeah. I think the Dolphins, it might not be a complete blowout because the Jets defense is still super good. But I think the Dolphins are going to come away with this one on the road. Give me the Dolphins. Up next, the Saints heading to Atlanta, taking on the Falcons in what I can only describe as a game between two offenses that refuse to win the game for their team. Seth is taking the Saints in this game. And I'm gonna take the Falcons. I know that I think they're going to be bringing in Desmond Ridder. I don't know if Taylor Heineke is going to be starting. It's hard for me to bet on the Saints, man. I know the Saints are coming off of the bye, but I don't know. I just don't feel great about the Saints at all. Their offense is so bad. They're just unable to capitalize on scoring chances. So yeah, I'm gonna take the Falcons in this one. It's not gonna be pretty, but yeah, I'll take the Falcons, even though technically the Saints are in the wild card right now, which is bonkers to me. Up next, we have an AFC North matchup. The Steelers visiting the Bengals. Seth is taking the Bengals in this game. I don't know if he's aware that Joe Burrow is out. Give me the Steelers. I don't think the Bengals are going to be able to win this game without Joe Burrow. They have not been good when Joe Burrow was playing poorly. So I can't imagine that their backup is going to be able to pull it off against that Steeler defense. I think this is going to be a low-scoring affair because obviously it is. However, Steelers did fire OC Matt Canada, so maybe the offense comes alive. Maybe Kenny Pickett figures it out with the new interim OC. But yeah, I'm going to take the Steelers in this one. I think it's going to be a defensive matchup. I think the Steelers match up better on defense. Give me the Steelers. We got a lot of division matchups this week. We got the Jaguars visiting Houston, taking on the Texans. Seth is taking the Jags to win this game. And I will have to disagree again. Give me the Texans. I said it last week. I think the Texans are the best team in that conference, in that division. I think the Texans have a very good shot of winning that division and hosting a home playoff game. Jags, I don't know which Jags team I'm going to get one week or the other. Obviously, last week they beat the Titans in blowout fashion, and the Texans pull off a gutsy win over the Cardinals. And it was not even C.J. Stroud's best game, but he still threw for over 300 yards. Yeah, you have that kind of player on your team. Yeah, give me the Texans. I don't think they really. I think it could be a close game because it's a divisional game, but I think the Texans are just the better team. I don't know. Something about they're more consistent, I guess. Up next, the Buccaneers visiting the Colts. Seth is taking the Buccaneers, and I will agree. The Buccaneers heading on the road. It's not an easy environment, but it's indoors. They're out of the elements, and the Colts are just so not good. They're just not good. They're not good on defense. They're not good on offense. And the Buccaneers, they are still fighting for that wild card spot. And Baker Mayfield has the ability to play good games. Now, he didn't play a good game against the 49ers last week, but it's an up-down league. And Colts are coming off the bye, so they might be feeling good about themselves. But look, Gardner Minshew, as much as I love him as a human, because he's just Minshew mania, it's great. He's just not all that good of a quarterback. And not that, Baker Mayfield is all that good to begin with, but I think he's going to be slightly better. And that defense for the Bucs, I think I trust more over that Colts defense, or that Colts offense. So, yeah, give me the Buccaneers. And another former Super Bowl rematch, but these teams could not be any different from when they last played. It is the Patriots visiting the Giants. Seth is taking the G-Men. And this is awful, but you know what? I gotta agree. I'll take the G-Men as well. I think I said at one point I'm never betting on the Patriots because I can't do it. The Patriots are so bad. They're coming off of their bye, but I don't even know if Mac Jones is gonna be their starting quarterback. They brought in Bailey Zappi last time, and they're awful. They're just so awful. Bill Belichick is totally cooked. It's not good. Yeah, I mean, Tommy DeVito is probably feeling good about himself, so yeah, give me Tommy DeVito. Up next, the Panthers visiting the Titans. And what I can only describe as offensive to offenses in all way, shape, and form. Seth is taking the Titans in this game. And I will only agree, not because I believe in the Titans, but because I believe so little in the Panthers. I mean, they just, week in and week out, look awful. Bryce Young looks terrible. He looks outmatched. He looks uncomfortable. Frank Reich is not doing a good job with that young quarterback. And look, Will Levis is not playing amazing for the Titans, but I think this is a get-right game for him. I think this is a game where he can feel a little good about himself up against that garbage defense for the Panthers. Yeah, give me the Titans. Up next, the Rams heading to Arizona, taking on the Birds, the Cardinals. Seth is taking the Rams. And you know what? I'm going to disagree. I'm going to take the Cardinals. Look, Kyler Murray has played pretty solidly since coming back. And the Rams, they got away with one this weekend, I think. I think they did. I don't love the Cardinals just because obviously they have just the one win, I believe, or maybe 2 wins. I don't remember. They're not good. But with Kyler Murray, they're certainly given a better chance of winning. So yeah, I'll take the Cardinals. Give me the Birds. Up next, the Browns visiting the Broncos. Seth is taking the Browns, and I will agree. The Broncos offense is not good. It's really not. I know. I know they've won, however many games. But to me, the Browns defense is so unstoppable that their terrible offense is not going to be able to get off the field. Now, to be fair, the Browns offense is not good either. So I think this is going to be a low-scoring affair. But the Browns like those low-scoring affairs. They just beat the Steelers in a low-scoring affair. So yeah, give me the Browns to take the win on the road and the win streak for the Broncos. Up next, we have a divisional matchup again. The Chiefs at the Raiders. See, Seth is taking the Chiefs. And I will just sort of agree instinctively. That's the word I was looking for. Look, Chiefs played a rough game on Monday night, but this is a game I feel this is a get right game. Okay, Raiders have a bad defense, right? If your receivers can just catch the ball, please, just catch the ball, then you'll feel good about yourself. But I guess we don't even know because the Chiefs just seem to consistently drop balls. But I don't feel good enough about the Raiders. The Chiefs are still pretty much running away with that division, and I think this is a game that they're going to win. They've beaten the Raiders to a pulp every year, and it's hard for me to not bet on Mahomes one way or the other. So yeah, give me the Chiefs. Up next, the Bills taking on the Eagles. Seth is taking the Eagles, and I will agree with him on this one as well. The Eagles, they pulled off a gutsy win. I talked about it earlier in the show. It was not beautiful. It wasn't amazing. Jalen Hurts did not look great. But to me, the Bills are basically the Eagles on steroids in so much as you don't know which team you're going to get from a week-to-week basis, but it's usually bad from the Bills. Last week, they had a get-right game against the Jets. I think this is a not-so-great game for the Bills. Yeah, I think the Eagles are going to be the first team to reach double-digit wins this season with a win this week. Give me the Birds. Speaking of Birds, the Ravens visiting the Los Angeles Chargers of San Diego, Seth's team. And Seth is a defeated man because he has taken the Ravens, and that is the right choice. The Ravens are far and away the better team, better defensively, better on offense. This potentially has the markings of being Brandon Staley's last game. I don't know. It could be. If he gets blown out at home, then it might be the end. But we'll see. I find it hard to believe that the Spanoses will fire in the middle of the season. But the Ravens, I mean, we talked about it earlier. Lamar Jackson's playing really good. The defense is playing lights out. I just don't see the Chargers pulling off a win here. So, yeah, give me the Birds. I've said that like 5 times already. I like the Bird teams this week, except for the Seahawks. I don't like them this week. Finally, Monday Night Football. Bears visiting the Vikings. Seth is taking the Vikings. And you know what? I'll take the Bears, okay? Look, last week the Bears, played a game where they could have won. And Justin Fields played well. At least well enough where you're like, okay, he might be able to do something like this. I think in terms of QB matchups, if I had to take Justin Fields versus Josh Dobbs has been good, but he has a similar problem to Justin Fields. And I think the Bears, they feel bad about that loss last Sunday. And I think they are going to be riled up to try to win this game on the road. It's tough. I get it. Minnesota on the road, Monday night, prime time. Everybody's going to be watching. I don't know. I just got a weird feeling about the Bears. So give me the Bears in that game. All right, to wrap it up, here are the picks. Packers, Lions, we are both taking the Lions. Commanders, Cowboys, we are both taking the Cowboys. 49ers, Seahawks, we are both taking the 49ers. Dolphins, Jets, we are both taking the Dolphins. Saints, Falcons, Seth is taking the Saints. I am taking the Falcons. Steelers, Bengals, Seth is taking the Bengals. I am taking the Steelers. Jaguars, Texans, Seth is taking the Jaguars. I am taking the Texans. Buccaneers, Colts, we are both taking the Buccaneers. Patriots, Giants, we are both taking the Giants. Panthers, Titans, we are both taking the Titans. Rams, Cardinals, Seth is taking the Rams. I am taking the Cardinals. Browns, Broncos, we are both taking the Broncos. Chiefs and Raiders, we are both taking the Chiefs. Bills and Eagles, we are both taking the Eagles. Ravens and Chargers, we are both taking the Ravens. And Bears, Vikings, Seth is taking the Vikings. I am taking the Bears. And that is your Week 12 picks. All right. So that wraps up the show. So again, I wanted to note, normally I'm live for the Lions game. Won't be live this Thursday for obvious reasons. So there won't be a broadcast this Thursday. And obviously, hello. I don't know what happened. It just suddenly my mic went out. I don't know what happened there. I don't know how long. I think I just got an alert for it, so I can't imagine that was for that long. Hopefully it wasn't. If it was, mistakes were made. We'll just leave it at that. But anyway, no broadcast this Thursday for the Lions game. No broadcast, obviously, on Sunday. Next Lions game with the broadcast will be the Saints game a week from Sunday. So that will be that. And then obviously we'll be back next week on Tuesday to break down the whole weekend. It's going to be a crazy weekend in sports. Rivalry weekend, final game of the Michigan State football season. Thank the Lord. Michigan, Ohio State, all sorts of fun things. It's going to be a crazy week. So looking forward to it all. So if you came out, hung out, appreciate it. And I'll see you guys next week. Have a great weekend and happy Thanksgiving as well. See you guys later. Have a good night, everybody.